Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Geeking Out podcast. I am the Athletic Geek, joined this week by the Todd Black.
Hello.
And this is a podcast I've been wanting to do for quite some time. Unfortunately, just the circumstances that have finally brought to fruition are not the not the way I wanted to do this. Unfortunately, Kevin Conroy, the one and only true Batman, in my opinion, passed away recently. So, kind of figured now, in his honor, it'd be as good a time as any to do our top 10 favorite episodes of Batman the Animated Series. Before we get started, we were kind of talking off air about this a little bit. You want to share a quick Kevin Conroy story?
Actually, I got two. The other one I didn't get to tell you. So my personal Kevin Conroy story is that I was at a Comic-Con called Keystone Comic-Con. This is 2018, 2019. And at the show was Kevin Conroy. And so I had never been in a position to meet him before. So I paid my money and I got to go and take a photo op with him. And I go walk in, I'm nervous, but I know exactly what I want to say to him once I get the photo taken. And I go in, I go, hi, Mr. Conroy, I'm Todd. And he goes in that oh so perfect Batman voice, hi, Todd. And I'm like shivering, and we do the picture, and it came out nice. And my goal was to do my Joker impression for him because I've been told I do a wonderful Mark Hamill impersonation. I'm
You
just
do.
saying. Thank you. And so, but I wanted to ask him about that because you hear it one way, but someone can hear it another. And I appreciate you saying that, Eli. But I turn to Kevin, and right as I do to open my mouth, the photographer yells, "Next!" And I was just like, "That's it? I can't even." And yes, the line was long. You've got to keep it going. And so I just shrugged and I thanked him and I left. But I always wanted to meet him again, which sadly I never got the opportunity to via the cons I was at. And I wanted to, just thank him for everything because, like you said, he is, in many people's eyes, the one true Batman. I actually did a list of all the Batmen, and I made sure Kevin Conroy was on top because he's been Batman for decades.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then my other story is that I have a friend who's also named Todd, kid you not, and he actually worked on Batman the Animated Series. He was one of the artists who did the character renderings, and he got to know Kevin Conroy through the show and through Comic-Con. And they were actually really good friends. And when he told me about that, I'm like, you jerk. That's unfair that you get to know Kevin Conroy like that. Kevin used to come to his table at Comic-Cons and talk with him. That's how cool they were with one another. I'm like, I never got close to that. So, actually, I just realized I haven't said I'm sorry to Todd about this. Darn, I'm a horrible person.
You've been busy, man.
I have been busy. I found out at a Comic-Con. In fact, Eli was the one who told me
Geek,
that
kayfabe
Kevin yeah, breaking kayfabe. Eli was the one, or Athletic Geek was the one who told me about this. I'm at a Comic-Con just trying to sell comics, and all of a sudden he goes, "Hey, Todd, you want to do a podcast about the top 10 Batman TAS episodes in honor of Kevin Conroy?" And I'm like, what do you mean in honor of Kevin Conroy? So, not how I wanted to find out.
Not how I wanted to break it to you.
There you go.
My story is he came to Wizard World St. Louis, and I'd kind of tell he was like the only person. Him and Lauren Lester were the only people I cared to meet at that con. So much so that I waited to buy my ticket when I saw him on Twitter saying, "At the airport, on my way. This is my first time going to St. Louis." Da 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 da. And I'm like, so I got the whole weekend pass because I'm like, well, it may be long on Friday. I may have to try my luck on a different day. Nobody was there on Friday, so I was like second in line, and unfortunately, in somewhat contrast to Todd's story, where he wanted to say more and thank him, he just got kind of the quick, "Hey, how you doing?" I got to actually tell Mr. Conroy about how there was a time in my life where things got very dark, and I contemplated some very dark things, and I ended up revisiting Batman the Animated Series, and that kind of got my head fixed to where I didn't do some of those things, and Kevin was very happy I didn't when I told him that, and great guy. Really glad I got to meet him. Really glad I got to share that, especially now. It's he's a great dude, and I'm glad I got to meet him. It is to this day the background image on my phone is me and Kevin Conroy with me in a bad suit cosplaying as Harvey Bullock from Gotham.
Gosh. Gotham Harvey Bullock. Interesting.
Yeah, it's like the suit, kind of I had the beard and kind of could pull it off, maybe not really, but I wanted to say I cosplayed, so now it just looks like I really dressed up to meet Kevin Conroy. Which if there's anybody you're gonna really dress up for, it should be Kevin Conroy, and got to tell the same, said the same thing to Lauren Lester, who was also really cool. But yeah, I very happy to get to meet Kevin, and he was him. Two of my, I have three holy grails. The one, Mark Hamill's the one I haven't met yet, and the other two are unfortunately no longer with us now, being Kevin Conroy and Stan Lee. So, really glad I got to meet them when I did. So, without any further ado, we're going to start with this list, and we're going to start with number 10 for Todd.
All right, I'm going to start off with something festive, ladies and gentlemen. Christmas with the Joker. This is just, why not, have a Christmas episode with Batman? I mean, Mark Hamill totally drilled this, with the themes, and It's a Wonderful Life will not be playing tonight. I loved that part. And he's on every channel. Of course he is. He's a Joker. And they even did like a little fun fight scene to, what was it? Nutcracker?
Yes.
And it was just like dun 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 dun. It was like, I love those moments, and Batman TAS sometimes doesn't get praised enough for the music that it did. I almost put one episode on here just because of a really funky battle theme that they had with Batman and Joker, but I decided not to. But like this was one example of like using the music to really elevate the episode, and the performances of Conroy and Hamill here. Even Lauren Lester is like, see, Bruce, it is a wonderful life. It has its moments. That's a Batman line if there ever was one. So, it's not the most profound episode, but it just shows that even the one-shots were brilliant for the series.
All right, my number 10 is one that probably a lot of people don't talk about, but as a kid and to this day, I love it. It is The Mechanic.
Oh, about the Batmobile guy.
Yes.
That was a good episode.
Kind of tells you the story of, how Batman got the Batmobile and how he hired an honest mechanic who got fired for not looking the other way and, going ahead with the production of a car that was going to essentially be unsafe for people to drive. And then, Batman comes to him to construct the Batmobile, and it's kind of it's a good Penguin episode, which there really wasn't a whole hell of a lot of, but it was a good Penguin episode.
Well, I want to comment on that because this is also something I said about Batman 66 at one point in time. Sometimes the villains are only as good as how you write them, and in both shows, they sometimes come up with the most genius plots.
Oh yeah.
All right. Like in this one, Penguin found out of who the Batman's mechanic was because of just regular public record.
Yeah.
Like he found a guy, it was like an accountant or something, who found out all these high-tech pieces were being requested for the Batmobile. Like that's basic logic, and yet you think more people would go along those lines. And yet they don't. And here Penguin used that to his advantage to almost kill Batman and Robin. That's brilliant.
That kind of goes into one of my favorite parts of the whole thing. You have this really meek accountant, who goes into the sewer to meet the Penguin, and he's gets his big check from the Penguin, like, oh, here you go, thank you. And then he's like going down puts him in the duck.
Yeah,
boat, and he's like going like down a drain, and he's like, excuse me, where is this gonna take me? On a sea cruise. I just always thought that was funny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And he's like swirling down to probably his death, going, excuse me, sir, excuse me.
Yeah, you could say that his face was really flush after that.
Oh yes. But I like that, when I like the kind of the whole storyline of them blackmailing him, the mechanic, um, the use of an obscure racer's term to kind of like try and warn them of like, my daughter has got work in the basement.
Yeah.
It's, lots of stuff needs to be done down in the basement.
Yeah, I remember it's like, and like Batman's like, yeah, sure, thanks. And like, you're Batman.
Yeah.
Gosh dang it.
Or they like, I also fixed the airbag switch for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, Batman should know. And then of course, when does he realize it? Oh yeah, when he's about to die.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And the other thing that I thought like was cool about it is like, okay, so the Batmobile's destroyed afterwards, but you see him going to the mechanic and being like, I'm building you a new Batmobile. It's like, that kind of explains things. Like, when I saw it as a kid, that always explained. So I'm like, oh, hey, the Batmobile wrecked, or the Batplane wrecked, or the Batcomputer got destroyed. Like, what's he gonna do? And it's like actually him like saying like, here we got this, we got the schematics, we're gonna build you a new Batmobile. It's good. And that's in layman's terms, but it's not what was said in the show. But like, okay, cool.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I like that. And that was, I first saw it like in my like, as a kid, there are two things I really liked with Batman and NASCAR. So this is one that like brought in cars. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. So yeah, it's an underrated episode. You're probably not going to see this one on a lot of top 10 lists, but it's good enough for mine.
Yeah. I also want to note something, Eli. I don't know if you know this, but I've got Batman in my basement. That was a bad episode, but whatever.
Right. Number 9.
All right, if it wasn't for the quality of certain other episodes, this would so be higher on my list because this one meant so much to me. It's the Clock King. All right.
Yeah, I like that one.
There you go. Clock King is one of the more underrated villains because of his motif, and in like other shows like Batman, Brave and the Bold, they make him very, hokey in terms of, oh, he wears like a clock on his head and everything. But here, he is just a guy who was given good advice on the worst possible day. It all goes wrong, and he decides, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to become a villain and use time to screw with all of you. And it's so basic. It's so perfect. And I can't remember who the voice actor is, but he perfectly gave a perfectly menacing performance as Temple Fugit, and how he may screw with Mayor Hill and with Batman and everything. And he didn't get caught at the end. He got quote unquote crushed by a clock tower, and he was fine because he showed up in another episode, which was just as good. But and then they brought him back for arguably one of the best Justice League episodes ever with Task Force X, because they needed his efficiency to perfectly plan out.
I remember that episode too.
Yeah. And I'm not joking to say, when I thought of my own idea for a Suicide Squad movie, and I had Temple Fugit in there, and I even would have brought back the guy who played him for Arrow. Dang it, what's his name? See, Eli's curse of not knowing celebrities has now affected me.
Kayfabe just out the window with all the first name drops.
Yeah, but
it's fine. It's for Kevin.
Let's see, who was he? I can't find him. Come on. Oh, Robert Kemper. There is it.
Okay.
Robert Kemper was great as him as Arrow, and I would have him lean into that more as Temple Fugit instead of William Tachman. And it was just a simple yet brilliant episode about, because what's the Joker line? One bad day.
Mm-hmm.
One bad day can turn you into a villain. This was a perfect example of that. This was a guy who had everything. He was fighting for everything. He got good advice on the wrong day, and it ruined him. And so he's like, I'm gonna ruin you now, and he almost did. Like, he got so dang close. All right, you could say it was a matter of seconds even.
The thing that always saw about that episode for me was you saw Batman in the daytime, which was not something you saw a lot.
This is true.
My number 9 has already been mentioned. It is Christmas with the Joker.
Hello.
I love this episode.
I'm actually really curious about how many we're going to have crossover, because I can guess about 3 or 4.
Well, there's quite a few of them quite a few of my favorite episodes because as a kid, before they had released seasons of TV shows on, only the rich had DVDs, but on VHS, they'd release like a VHS tape with like 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And I remember at first there was a Riddler tape, a Two-Face tape, a Joker tape, and a Robin tape, and they had
I remember those. A Blockbuster.
Yes.
I love those.
So I had on the Joker one, it was Christmas with the Joker and the Laughing Fish. And I was watching Christmas with the Joker because I was a Robin fan, and Laughing Fish didn't have Robin, so I watched this one because Robin was in it. So that's like why I watched it a shit ton as a kid. But it is a great episode. Everything that Todd mentioned was great. But like the other thing that I really liked was trying to, Robin at the beginning trying to convince Bruce just stay in. Even the scum spend time with their families. They have no family. I can't do that.
I have no families.
I got to do the shitty Christian Bale version because I can't do Kevin's. But when they see what they think is a purse thief and it's actually a guy doing a good deed, bringing a purse back to his old lady, and he's like, isn't it like, Robin's like, doesn't that make you feel good? And Batman just swings away, he's like, all right, well, bah humbug to you too.
Yeah, Lauren Lester was so good. I mean, he really was.
Like the part where like his studio audience was cardboard cutouts of like Batman, Robin, and like the public officials, like the Mayor Hill and Commissioner Gordon was his studio audience.
Bullock was the baby.
Yeah,
remember?
Bullock was the baby.
And the reporter was the mom.
Yeah, they had like a lot of just well told, well paced. You had a lot of action, but like it all fit within the story. They didn't put too much action in for the sake of like we gotta get a bunch of stuff in because it's a Joker episode. Like it was just all well paced. But the main reason is the very beginning when they're at Arkham and they're having a Christmas sing along with the, I don't know if you call them, I guess it'd be, in Arkham they're patients, they're not really like convicts or inmates. Yeah.
Can I do a song? Can I do it?
Yes. Yeah.
Jingle bells, Batman spells, Robin laid an egg. Batmobile lost to it, and Joker got away.
Yes. I love that, and that's how you start the episode off. Yep. So,
the rocket-propelled Christmas tree.
And then he's singing Christmas carols and in a straitjacket at the very end. Great episode. It is the only, like, legit... Maybe my honorable mentions, there's more, but it's the only legit Joker episode in my top 10. That's not a knock on the Joker episodes. Wow. That's just me saying that I liked a bunch better, but that's not a... But yeah,
not a slide on Joker.
It's not a slide on Joker. It's a this is a good series with a lot of other good stuff. But it's my favorite Joker episode of the whole series, and it's perfect.
I just want to say that I didn't realize it at first, but yeah, this is my only Joker episode too.
That's how good of a series it is that like Mark Hamill, the best Joker ever. I even told Chris Jericho that. He only gets 1 on the top 10 from both of us. That's how good this series was with the villains across the board.
Well, I do want to note that we aren't including the crossover like World's Finest. We talked about that earlier. And then the movies obviously aren't on here because if there was a Mask of the Phantasm, it would be on here. So
the best DC animated movies is a whole other podcast, a whole other top 10 list for another day too.
All right. Shall I continue then? With
number 8.
Okay, I'm warning you all. The Riddler is my favorite Batman villain, and I have 2 of his best in here. There were 3 main Riddler episodes. That's actually a crime when you think about it. But I'm putting in his second best one right now, which is What is Reality? So I want you to think about this. This was back when technology wasn't exactly the highest of qualities, like with computers and all that. So the idea of Batman versus Riddler in a virtual world was just so enticing to kid me. Like, oh, if you think it, you can create it. And then the Riddler pulling a fast one on them by trapping Gordon's mind in the video game, for lack of a better term, was just fun, and then Batman and Robin having to work together, and then Batman working alone to overcome the Riddler's riddles and games and everything was just so much fun. Like the door scene, no, Batman, not that one. Crazy Intent is a locomotive.
Yeah,
Like that's a great pun. First of all, that's something that I totally would have come up with. Uh, and then at the end with how Riddler got stopped with the whole, he split his mind too many ways was great. And I love that. That was a very Batman way of getting out of the situation. It was just a very visually appealing episode, and I just love how they handled Riddler most of the time. So
the Riddler's my favorite villain too. So there's at least one Riddler episode on this from my end as well.
Yeah. But yeah, like you'll hear from me about Riddler later. But yeah.
All right, so my number 8, and you can kind of count this as a cheat, but it's my list, and you play by my rules.
Do it.
Two-Face Part 1 and 2. So 2-part episodes I lump into one for one spot.
Spoiler, I did the same, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. So I did that a number of times on this list. I just love this episode with, that shows the origins of Harvey becoming Two-Face, because at the beginning of the series, Harvey wasn't Two-Face yet. You actually got to know, for a little while at the beginning, District Attorney Harvey Dent, who's trying to clean up the streets of Gotham, and you learn that Harvey has multiple personality disorder, and, he's, in one instant where a mafia member getting arrested, or a criminal, whatever you want to call him, kind of insults Harvey, allows him, has him fly off the deep end, and you see that first tease, and then, Rupert Thorne, who
another underrated villain.
Underrated villain because he's like, small tangent, there's no good, there's nothing redeeming about him. There's no well, at least he's fun. You're just like, fuck that guy. We've talked wrestling before. He is the perfect heel because you're just like, I don't like anything about you. No, I don't want you to win because you're bad. That is Rupert Thorne. There is no, when the Joker is around, you're like, he's going to be entertaining. He's going to be fun because he's the Joker. To add his, how sinister he is. The Riddler's around. Oh, this is going to be so cool. Rupert Thorne is just like, fuck that guy. And then he gets a hold of Harvey's mental health file, saying that, oh, you've got multiple, it seems like you're being treated for multiple personality disorder. I think the voters would really love to know what their district attorney, is dealing with, and that's, I didn't appreciate as a kid, but now you realize, oh, that's what people do. That's what people do to people. When they don't want something to happen, they're like, oh, well, this person's this, and, the whole digging and people's private lives, for stuff like a mental illness, that would be exploited in an actual election, or, if somebody was, actually a public figure in something like trying to prosecute criminals, be like, well, we can't trust this guy. Look at him. But just the whole episode's really good. The origin of Two-Face. The thing that always stands out to me is the, when it happens, you'd feel the heartbreak in both Bruce and Batman. The one time where, they're really not quite so well defined. You just see, the no Harvey moment.
Yeah, that's good.
And then they do Two-Face so well in this series, and the part 2 is not as good as part 1, but you got to include it, especially for the ending where Batman gets the coin, the 2-headed coin with the good side and the bad side, for as Harvey's taken to Arkham, and he, flings it in a wishing, in a fountain, to make a wish for Harvey, and it lands on the good side. That was really cool. And even as a kid, I realized how, moving that was. So, yeah. Two-Face Part 1 and 2 is my number 8.
Yeah, I'll speak more on my take when I get to that. I have a little bit higher, but I appreciate you having it there in the first place. All right, next.
7.
Yes, for me, I'm going to do something that I'm sure some of you might be surprised by. I am going to season 4 of this show. I'm going to the new Batman Adventures because while I didn't, I'm going to fully admit, I didn't like how they handled the character designs. I liked the original 3 seasons better, especially for ones like Catwoman and Joker, and I felt they were like not realistic, but like more believable, I
It
suppose.
kind of fit in line with the rest of the DC universe after they introduced the Superman. The only thing I didn't like was Gordon because it looked like Gordon got
Yeah,
sick.
yeah. Gordon was like anorexic. Catwoman was literally like a completely different
Like
person.
gothic. They went really in the Michelle Pfeiffer direction there.
Yeah. All right. But they had actually they had like 3 or 4 episodes, but they had certain episodes that really stuck out. One of them was Old Wounds. This is the Nightwing origin episode where we get to find out about why Dick Grayson left the cowl or the Robin mantle behind and became the mulleted Nightwing. Yes, mullet Nightwing, long may he reign. Even Bruce Timm had laughed at that one in the commentary for a certain other episode. But I like this because when you're a kid and you're used to seeing Robin, and this was before Teen Titans and everything else. The idea of him becoming Nightwing was foreign to me. All right, I think I might have known about Nightwing, but I didn't recall. I didn't read comics until I was
I knew about
18.
Nightwing because they had the Legends of Batman action figure line. And I remember like, what's a Nightwing? And then like you read the back, like when Robin grows up, he becomes Nightwing. So like I had that.
Yeah.
So, but continue.
But anyway, so I didn't know. Then when we meet Nightwing in season 4, it's after Tim Drake shows up and Bruce is teaching him the rules, and his rule number 4 is I make the rules, and then Nightwing shows up and it's like, careful kid, that last one's a killer, and like everyone's shocked because Nightwing is there. Like, why is everyone shocked? And now you find out, they had a big disagreement. Batman kind of went too far at one point, and then he found out about Batgirl being Barbara, who of course they had a relationship, and it was just and I hate to go on a rant, but in today's animation world, there are so many series that go for just the super comedic stories, just to do even certain superhero series do this. And for this show to delve into someone literally growing out of a phase and putting a father figure behind them because they don't agree with them anymore, that's profound television.
Yes.
And I loved that, and it speaks to who Nightwing is as a character.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I know that there's been many iterations of why he left in the comics and so on, but this was a very good one because he felt that Bruce was going too far. He didn't like that Batgirl was there, and so on and so forth. And also, we got the Akira motorcycle shot in that episode with Robin, so that was also really, really cool. But this was one of those episodes where it was like, it didn't need to be about the action. It was absolutely about the characters. Mm-hmm. And that was all that mattered, and that's what I adore about it.
Yep.
Your turn.
More on that later for me.
Ooh, you got it higher. Okay, interesting.
Number 7 is another episode that maybe a lot of people don't like, but I loved it.
Better not say Critters.
No.
Better not say Critters.
No. Night of the Ninja.
Ooh, that almost made my list. I won't lie. I like that one a lot.
I liked it because it was just basically the you got to find out like how Bruce became like so good at fighting, and the story of him traveling to Japan to learn, him actually having somebody who was better than him. Was a really cool dynamic, and this person coming to Gotham, and you essentially find out like Bruce puts the wall up and doesn't explain how concerned he is about the fact that he's like, hey, I guess guy kicked my ass and I could never beat him, so he was worried about that. But I'm not the world's biggest kung fu movie guy, but like the way they kind of did it like a movie, where like every fighting style is like a fingerprint. You'll always, he knew that was, fighting Batman, he knew that he was fighting Bruce Wayne because of the fighting style, and he knew that the ninja was the guy that he couldn't beat because of that guy's fighting style. I thought was really cool. And there's a moment with Robin. Again, as a kid, I loved all the moments with Robin where Bruce gets done training Dick, and then Alfred informs like another Wayne Enterprises' own building was robbed. Something else I forgot to mention is he was kicked out of the dojo because Bruce caught him stealing. So he's like, "Oh, you ruined my life." So he knows it was Bruce. So now he was out to ruin Bruce's life. He's like, that's the sixth Wayne Tech. Dick says that's the sixth Wayne Tech building that's been burglarized so far, and like Bruce just looks at him and goes, 7. Like, where's Commissioner Gordon, Alfred? And then like behind him you see like Dick making a face, which I thought was hilarious. Just a little bit of humor to a very, very serious and dark episode. And it's a really good episode. It's more into Batman's origin, and I thought it was really well done. And coming back and watching it as an adult, I think it's still good. So, Night of the Ninja is number 7 for me.
Yeah, I like that one because of the dynamic. It was, Batman at his peak versus a ninja who's, fueled by revenge and wants to just destroy his former rival. And this is one where like the action was really, really good, and it didn't matter that the bad guy was simplistic. That actually worked in favor because it was tied to Bruce's origin.
You don't have to have always a complicated origin story.
Exactly. All right. Next up, we have number 6. Okay. This one is on the list because of context, because of the impact that it had. Like, there's a lot of episodes of Batman the Animated Series that have influenced, like, most superhero shows and even movies over time. But this one was one that started out as simple, probably a, hey, let's put these two together and see what happens, and turn into a literal cultural phenomenon. I'm talking, of course, about Harley and Ivy.
I knew that's where you were going when he gave that intro, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so for those of you who still don't know, Harley Quinn was not born in the comics. She was born on Batman the Animated Series by Paul Dini in tribute to his friend Arlene Sorkin. No, Arlene Arkin. Sorry.
Yeah. Arlene Sorkin was the voice.
Right. Arlene. Is it? I'm going to look that up. Is it Sorkin or Arkin? It's just my
God. Sorkin is the original Harley voice up until the Arkham Asylum video game, and then Tara Strong took over.
Then Tara Strong, right. Anyway, so she was born to be, this person, and then Harley was made in tribute to this person, and she took a life of her own during the show, and she got super, super popular, and so naturally that eventually led to Mad Love, which could have easily been on this list. Probably should have been on my list, but it's not. But Harley and Ivy stands out because this was the episode that really started to put into context that Harley and Joker do not have a actual loving relationship. Previous episodes emphasized that they kind of had a weird loving relationship. He treated her like a partner or a mate. He kissed her a couple times on the cheek and patted her on the head like a pet. But it was Ivy who started to bring into context that, hey, this isn't a good guy, and we can do better as a girl duo than you can do with Joker. And that set up so many things, between the comics, the games, and of course the Harley Quinn animated series, which is legendary. As legendary as Batman TAS, but definitely in the top 5. I do love that show despite how raunchy and gory it is. I honestly shouldn't like that show, but because of how great it is.
I've never seen it. That's just kind of how far behind on the...
It's on HBO Max, all 3 seasons. It's really great. But I appreciate this episode because it was willing to do that. And let's be honest here, the 90s weren't exactly the best for female empowerment. And so for them to dedicate this episode and to not have Batman take them down, but Renee Montoya take them down, was a great moment. And that would set up many things to come for Harley and Ivy's relationship. So I am giving them the props they deserve for setting up things for decades to come and putting them on my my list at number 6.
Um, I think the thing I liked most about that is like they had like the montage where Harley and Ivy are clipping out like the newspapers of all the crimes they've committed, and they're putting them on their refrigerator with like it's like a bat symbol magnet that has like the slash through it, like the Ghostbusters logo. I always thought that was funny. Yeah, it's a good episode. It's not in my top 10, but it's still a damn good episode. My number 6 is essentially on the list because it's a good episode, but it's on the list for one line. Like, one line is put this in the top 10, and that is Nothing to Fear.
Great episode.
Great episode with the, it does, kind of work on the dynamic of, Bruce's facade. Maybe doesn't always impress everybody. And maybe it doesn't look good on the Wayne name, despite, everything that we know about why he does that. Maybe that's detrimental to the name Wayne and the people that held it in high regard when, his parents were alive. But, great episode, has a scarecrow, use this fear villain to have Thomas and Martha say, you are a disappointment, you are a failure. But really, we all know that it's only there because of that one line. I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman. The line that Kevin Conroy has probably said numerous times, like more times than he could even count. Just for fans at cons, or even the famous story of him cooking for firefighters and police officers during 9/11. They just need extra help in the kitchens, and somebody saying like, hey, Batman's been preparing your dinner these last few nights, like, prove it, and then he just yells it from the kitchen. It's it is a great episode, and the themes it deals with are, well done, and I'm not trying to downplay the episode itself at all, but it's on my list because of that line. And yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. The line is iconic. I mean,
Yes.
like, that is one of the things that helped define Batman for a generation, was that line.
Yes.
Right.
Said by Kevin Conroy. It wouldn't have sounded so well being done by Christian Bale.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman. I am Batman. Swear you're Batman. Swear to me! Yeah.
Much
All
as I
right.
love those, I like the voice. But either way, we're up to number 5 now.
All right. Okay, so here we go. Number 5. This is an all-time classic. Almost Got Him. This is okay. I have a special reason for why Almost Got Him is on here, because back in the 90s, remember this was well before super advanced computer technology. The big thing that my parents loved to get me were audio cassette tapes that would have the actual voice actors from the show reading the lines that were also in a storybook, and one of them was Almost Got Him. Another one was about Poison Ivy that actually wasn't adapted into a Batman TAS episode. I always thought it was, but it wasn't. But whatever. It was about Poison Ivy. It was actually really good. Batman gave her a plant, and she's like, "Oh, the fool! He's gonna let me help. He's helping me escape." Then she realizes it's plastic, and she screams as she throws it out the window as Batman paraglides away. It was great. Anyway, but Almost Got Him is classic. Whether you read it or you watch it, it's because why wouldn't the villains get together and share Batman stories? Like, it's one of those ideas that you think there's no way that they can pull this off, and they do, because it's Batman. It's Penguin, it's Joker, it's Poison Ivy, it's Two-Face, and Killer Croc, and they all have a Batman story about how they almost got him, because that's all they have. They can't tell a story about how they actually beat Batman because they technically don't have any. And it's a wonderfully voiced, framed. But the big moment for me is when they reveal that Batman was Killer Croc the whole time, and they show it via a light transition.
Yes.
it's like, that's old school, baby. That's old school. Just light transition, and it goes right back. It's perfectly handled. Oh, and then a Batman impersonating Killer Croc. There I was in a sewer, just him and me. So what did you do? I threw a rock at him. Okay, your story next. It was a big rock.
I love that part. Threw a rock at him.
I threw a rock at him. I mean, he probably did. I mean,
But he builds it up so much though. It's like, here he comes, closer and closer.
Yeah.
You know, oh, just him. Like, yeah. I threw a rock at him.
Yeah, like, it was a big rock. Good times.
My number 5 is my lone Riddler entry. If you're so smart, why aren't you rich?
Gee, I wonder if I have that on my list.
Yeah, I wonder. You know, it has the origin of the Riddler, where he essentially works for a gaming company and comes up with this brilliant idea for a game, and he's not getting any money from it. So, you know, he kind of gets fired because he's going along with the lawsuit, and the owner of the software company just basically says, has a line, like, oh, you think you're so smart, but tell me something. If you're so smart, why aren't you rich? And, it says, like, it takes Enigma 2 years to enact this plan, but, he wants to, Bruce wants to bring that software company to Gotham to, be noble and create jobs for Gothamites and, have an amusement park for the game and all that stuff. The other thing I thought was cool is, like, the video game, you have Robin just straight up playing it on the Bat computer. And
he would totally do that.
Yeah, Robin would do that, and then Alfred saying, like, well, that must be quite the game if it's worth taking up on a $12 million computer. And I thought the game looked cool. I always wish they would have released, like, an actual version of the Riddle of the Minotaur game. But yeah, it's like a perfect Riddler episode. Love the whole thing with the riddles and the maze and the different riddles of moving an A, C, and D key and using A and then 2 blades come out at him because the key of A has 2 sharps, but the key of C has no sharps, so it works.
It's so beautiful. I love that. That was so clever.
Yeah, you got a lot of good riddles with this one, and I like that. And just the best Riddler episode in the series of the 3, which I could have done more with him, but the 3 they gave him.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, because the guy didn't deserve to be killed, but he was a dick. The software Mockridge, I believe. Yeah, Mockridge was his name. And at the very end, Riddler gets away, and even, like, Dick is like, yeah, but he got, like, $5 million from this buyout, and he's like, yeah, but he's not sleeping well. And the very end of it is like, yes, he didn't deserve to die, and yes, the Riddler's worse off, but he's get all his money, and he's rich, but he's, like, going to bed with a shotgun in his hand because he's so terrified of
the line you're looking for is, how much is a good night's sleep worth?
Now there's a
riddle. Yeah, there's a riddle for you.
Yeah. Love that part. And yeah, best Riddler episode of the whole series. And there could have been more, but they didn't want to use the Riddler. I don't understand. All right, so number 4.
Okay, this is the one that you talked about earlier. I'm going to elaborate on Two-Face 1 and 2. Wait a minute. 2 times 2 is 4. Oh my gosh! I actually didn't intend that, but that's hilarious. The reason I'm putting these episodes on here, especially Two-Face number 1, is because this is another one where they could have easily just gone the route of, like, say, Batman Forever, and it's like, oh yeah, he had acid spilled on him by a gangster and he turned dark. they
I do
decided.
like that origin, though. For the record, I want to say that. Yes.
I know that's a simple and it works. You know that they didn't need to go into Two-Face's origins in the movie, but here they decided to go the path of mental illness. You know, with dissociative identity disorder or split personality disorder, and they had Leslie Tompkins as a shrink, not just Bruce's aide, but as a shrink, which was is very progressive. Again for the '90s, and I loved the dialogue. There was so much in here that you can look back at and go like, oh my gosh, that just holds up so well. There's a line in here that I actually used in a fanfic for Ruby, the Rooster Teeth show, because I loved it so much. It's the brighter the picture, the darker the negative. And like just the way he said it as he's like burning something, it was like so impactful on me. And you're right, Rupert Grint. Rupert Grint just didn't. Rupert Grint, Thorne. I mean, Rupert Grint probably doesn't give a crap either. I mean, he's Ron Weasley after all. But Rupert Thorne just didn't give a crap. He would do anything to screw over Harvey, and him reading the file about what happened to him. And that was the birth of Big Bad Harv. Just he's reveling in it, and it's beautiful. But then like the ending of the first episode is so haunting. Give me a mirror. I said, give me a mirror. And like the scream he gave, and then the shot at the end where you see the half of Harvey facing his partner, and then he turns and we see like the monster, and she faints, and I'm like, yeah, that's fair. That's so fair. And then you're right, 2 doesn't hold up as well, but that's just because we got through the dark stuff. Like we got through the the origin. Like they blew him up. All right, he didn't get acid on his face. His face blew up. All right, because of him going after Thorne like he did. Like that was dark for the '90s, or just for animation in general. And
so much stuff they couldn't get away with in a kids show today, and they'll tell you that on the like alternate commentary. Yeah.
Well, that's why they wanted to do like the Bruce Timm, J.J. Abrams series that HBO Max got rid of, because they wanted to have even more depth and darkness, like that would reflect the comics, versus the line that they had to do with the animated show.
But they walked it so well to where like it wasn't insulting at all. Like it still tell those stories.
Yeah, they did.
As sophisticated and as they
should,
as they arguably should be, but reeled themselves in from crossing that line, like they'd have in books like Arkham Asylum, Mysterious House on Serious Earth, or Killing Joke, or what have you.
Yeah, they walked the line. They did it well. And Two-Face is a great example. Especially part 1 was just a great example of, how far can we go, and how they rarely, if ever, patronized us, which is not something I can say about a lot of modern animation. Like they said, here's a story, we hope you understand it, not, oh, we're going to do this story and we're going to make it so you have to understand it. They trusted us to get the depth of the story, and even back then as a kid, I got it.
Yeah,
all right?
And they still made sure, but they still told it in such a way that as a kid could understand it and realize the gravity of the situation, and not be like, hey, Mom, I got questions.
Yeah, I watched it with my dad, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was so good, and I'm forever grateful for my father for introducing me to this series. So, all right, you're up.
Well, my number 4 is one that we just spoke on. Almost got him.
There you go.
Yeah, just kind of everything we already talked about, especially the Killer Croc line. But to me, like, the reason I liked it, it was kind of like there was a book I used to buy a lot as a kid. Because when I was a kid, before I had, like, a pull list, I just had to go to, they just had whatever books they had at Walmart. They were, for me, they were at the very end of the action figure aisle. And the one thing I'd always do was I'd look to the end to see if it had a conclusion. If it didn't have a conclusion, and they didn't have the conclusion for sale too, I didn't buy it. And there was a book called The Batman Chronicles. And it was like 3 or 4 short stories. All of them with a conclusion. And usually that became my go-to book because I'm like, Superman, Man of Steel, okay, then it's gone. Spider-Man, oh no, it's in the middle. what I know now is probably in the middle of like a 24 issue story arc, you know. But like that was a conclusion. And to me, this episode felt like an issue of the Batman Chronicles where, you know, you get a little story for each person, which was cool. And you know, you kind of got like it was kind of the bang for your buck episode. Like you get a Two-Face story and you get a Poison Ivy story, which Poison Ivy story is great with it being on Halloween. And I thought that was really cool. You get the origin of the giant penny in the Batcave, and Two-Face actually like, what happened to the penny? They let him keep it!
That was clever. I did like that. That was clever.
They let him keep it! When we already talked to with, you know, quote-unquote, Killer Croc being, you know, there. And, you know, I threw a rock at him.
It was a big rock.
You know, you have Joker's big, you know, big to-do. Then at the end, you know, where they're going to... Then it all kind of comes together at the end where they're going to kill... Catwoman, and then he leaves, and she says, almost got him at the end. Great writing, great stuff. Great episode, and yeah, it's why it's worthy of the top 4 to me.
Nice. Excellent choice. All right. Number 3. This is one I actually almost forgot was in a certain season. So I want to break this down from the perspective of a child, me. By this point in time in the show, we knew that every episode was self-contained. You know, every episode, or most of them were self-contained outside of a few 1 or 2s. And we knew that every episode pretty much had a happy ending. There were some, like, you know, sour ones like Two-Face, but everything would work out in the end. So now I want you to picture an episode where one of the main characters dies in the opening few minutes. And everything that you have watched build up over the last few seasons is slowly unraveling around you. Friend against friend, ally against ally, and just a systematic destruction of everything that is Batman. I am talking about Over the Edge. This episode was so traumatic up until the last minute or 2 because you are wondering, what in the world? They kill Batgirl in the first few minutes of this episode, and
Dick Grayson is arrested.
Well, yeah, and that's still only the beginning. Like that still doesn't even fully encapsulate what this episode is, but they do everything in their power to make it the worst possible thing that can happen. And I remember the commentary for this episode, and Bruce Timm was like, "We had to show Batgirl die, but how do we do it without getting gory?" Like going back to our, you know, walking the line, and they found a way by having her get hit by the police car, which is emphatically traumatic to a child like myself.
Being driven by her father.
And him having her in her arms. And then the call he makes to Bruce afterward about how all it took was like 20 minutes on her computer to figure out everything, which is a scary thought. And the GCPD going after Batman, breaking into, you know, the manor, and them trying to escape on boats, and Nightwing coming to the rescue, and him getting arrested, and then Gordon being pulled off the case by the mayor, only to go to Bane to release him so that he could have an edge over Batman, only for them to fall off, be sent off the roof together to their doom, only for Batgirl to wake up from the fear toxin that she was apparently under the whole time. Like,
thank God!
Oh my gosh!
That was like that was like I've never been so relieved to be like, oh, Scarecrow, thank God.
Yeah, and again, remember, think about this from the perspective of a kid. The good guys win. That's the whole point. And here is like, one of them's dead, one of them's arrested, Gordon is like betrayed, and then it ends on a very happy note about how he kind of knows she's Batgirl if he won't say it out loud and whatnot. And it's just like, oh, thank goodness. Because if it had ended that way and it was like some kind of a weird Elseworld story, which it technically was, but if it had ended like that, and I don't know, something like the Phantom Stranger that appeared out of nowhere, and like, this is one way that this could have ended, be warned or whatever, that would have been like so traumatic. But thank goodness for that happy ending. But dear gosh, like, that was hardcore. That was everything that, you know, Batman fans fear. I mean, even the comics haven't gone that dark at times, and they did this in a 22-minute episode in the 90s. Like, wow. And again, that was during the New Adventures of Batman, which a lot of people don't give it credit for. And yet, I put 2 of those episodes on this top 10 list. So, ha!
My number 3, and it is the only New Adventures of Batman episode on my list.
Oh,
Old Wounds.
there you go.
I said earlier, I'm a Robin guy. I'm a fan of Dick Grayson. You have certain characters you love, and then you have characters you love because you see yourself in them. I always saw the original purpose of Robin was, hey, maybe a kid can't see themselves as Batman, but they could see themselves, as Batman's partner. And that's how I saw Robin. And, as you grow up, you may not see yourself still as Batman, but you don't see yourself just being Robin's or Batman's little friend anymore. So, in the comics and just, Dick Grayson's evolution from being a sidekick, forming the Titans, and, being a hero in his own right and realizing, hey, I can't just be, Robin is a symbol of who I was. I need to be somebody else, and becoming Nightwing was cool in the comics, and then to see it explored the way they did in Batman the Animated Series, New Adventures of Batman, was great. The whole story, everything that Todd touched on earlier with the difference in philosophies, the shocking moment where Robin just straight up punches Batman in the face. And,
That was a great moment.
And, the iconic, to me, in mine, they're not quite as iconic as Batman's line, but just for a Robin fan, just iconic to me. And also when you hear Lauren Lester talk about how iconic it is to him, things change, I change. That is, we all have that moment where things change, and maybe you outgrow something that you once believed in. Maybe you outgrew something that you outgrow a person that maybe you don't see eye to eye with as you grow up. That is what happened. And, well-told story, but at the very end, find out that the straw that broke the camel's back was Batman wanting to beat up and interrogate a thug in front, in his apartment in front of his family. And then he come to find out that Bruce gave that man a job at Wayne Enterprises. And, the guy said, yeah, even Mr. Wayne's kind enough to, say hello to me every day. And, it's like, well, Mr. Wayne's a good man. And then you see, yes, his philosophy's different. Yes, Dick needed to change. But there's a reminder of why you still were with that person, why you were still friends with that person, why you still believed in that ideal. So, yeah, Old Wounds is number 3.
Nice.
Number 2.
Yeah, number 2. All right, this is the one that we also have talked about. If you're so smart, why aren't you rich? Riddler is my favorite Batman villain, and this is the episode that helps cement that, especially because it was on those those VHS 2-parters, and that one I watched so many times. The Riddler is just so brilliant here. This and What Is Reality is arguably his peak. Yes, Riddler's Reform was just as good, but he did himself in the end.
I liked it, but it's not.
Yeah, the ending I honestly don't like, because it's how can he not figure it out? I'm like, you're the Riddler, figure it out. This is what you do. But if you're so smart, why aren't you rich? Was beautiful because it showed the smugness of Nigma and his ability to use his brain to just outsmart everybody, including Batman, multiple times over. All right, and the way he would do his riddles and got back at his old boss was hilarious. And I just love the idea that Batman totally had to cheat to beat Riddler, and he didn't even beat him. He saved Mockridge, but he had to use the Hand of Midas illegally, and then, like you said, Riddler got away. like that was the coolest part. Is like, sorry, Batman, by the time you get out of the maze, I'll be out of the city. And like that was such a new concept. The idea of these villains getting away during the episode versus like Joker with a prison break, you know. And I loved that. It's like he was so smart. He got away from Batman. Like how many villains in this show or any other show can actually say that? So this was just a well-handled episode. And also, for all of you flat earthers out there is a riddle for you in this episode. What is the quickest way to get from the port of Miami to somewhere else? I can't remember. And Dick Grayson, you know, who's really smart, says that's easy, a straight line. To which Alfred replies, well, actually, Master Grayson, since we are on a globe, wouldn't that be a curved line? There you go. Alfred confirmed. We are on a globe, not a flat Earth. You're welcome.
Sorry, AJ Styles.
Yeah. Wait, what?
There's a whole to-do. I'll send
Wait,
you. There's a whole like.
AJ's a flat earther? Are you kidding me?
He says he there was a big incident on Talking Smack with Daniel Bryan. He's like, you want to talk about how you believe the Earth is flat? And he's like, no, I'm not a flat earther. I just said that they just said some of the things they bring up make sense. And then like Brian's just like, no, you believe the Earth's flat.
Okay, don't scare me like that, man. Because I know there is this one wrestler that is emphatically flat earther, and he's like not really nice about it. But anyway, all right, you're number two.
I don't think AJ is like a Shiite flat earther, but like when you say something like that, and then you have Daniel Bryan of all people kind of call you out on it online, it makes for a lot of meme content of AJ's flat earther. AJ's a flat earther.
My gosh. All right, you're number two. Come on.
My number two is Beware the Gray Ghost.
Ooh, that one almost made my list. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that one almost made my list.
It is just well, just to address the main reason there. You got Adam West on there. You got Adam West.
Basically being Adam West. Like, that was so...
And that's the other thing, like, you can see, feel in his voice how close to home this role is to him, of him playing somebody who was a successful actor on a kids action show, but now he can't work anymore because everybody just sees him as the Gray Ghost. And then you also see one point in time in Bruce's childhood where he was happy. He liked watching the Gray Ghost, and some people don't like the fact that Batman and the Batcave had a whole fanboy area for the Gray Ghost, but back off it. That's fine. It's great. And then, everything that Simon Trent, the actor who played the Gray Ghost on the show, was going through, having to sell all of his merch and having to sell his original costume just to pay the rent, and then you find out that like all the crimes that are happening are just like an episode of the Gray Ghost, and
yeah, it's
Bruce. Well, the thing is, Bruce trying to track down the show, and then like saying like, oh, we couldn't do it, the negatives were destroyed, kind of neared something that was going on at the time with the original Batman TV show, because it wasn't available for a commercial release due to like, obviously the studio didn't burn down with the negatives, but like there's some like legal something or other going on of why they couldn't commercially release it, and I could just like catch an episode here or there, because I always wanted to. I'd never watched that at that point in time, and like knowing now, like, oh, that's kind of cool how they worked that in, and then Bruce Timm playing the toy man that is the Mad Bomber and using the Gray Ghost cars to transport the bombs. It's just a great episode, a great passing of the torch.
And when I was a kid, I didn't fully understand it because at that point in time, I hadn't watched Batman 66. That came a little later when I knew about TV Land. But my father explained it to me, and then later on, as I understood about the typecasting that Adam West had gone through, that made the episode so impactful. Like the conversation with his former manager about how everyone only saw him as the Gray Ghost, and he's like, I'm struggling to pay the bills here, and and then he got his happy ending by the fact that he was the one who had the original copies that could be used to sell everything, and then Bruce Wayne basically confessing that he's Batman right to his hero, like that was a great moment. So like, you inspired the next generation in the best way. So that was really cool.
I remember finding out from my mom, who, because they used to have it on after school every day, the episode, and she's like, I think that's Adam West, and I'm like, you're like, that's the old Batman. And like she watches the credits, like, yep, that was the guy that used to play Batman. And I'm like,
nice.
Yeah. And then learning all that stuff. Yeah, it's my number 2. It is to this series what the episode with in Smallville with Christopher Reeve.
Yeah.
Calling Clark Kal-El for the first time was to that series.
Yeah. That's a good reference.
All right, so honorable mentions, and I probably have enough for a whole other list, but let's go through them.
All right, I'll start with the one we talked about before the show, which is World's Finest, which was the multiple episode crossover.
Technically not a Batman, so okay, it's not eligible for the list, but
yeah, but honorable mention, it absolutely,
yes, absolutely.
Is. Yeah, this is peak television, ladies and gentlemen. Mm-hmm. Batman and Superman interacting, Bruce Wayne almost said charming the pants. Charming Lois Lane, if you get my drift, and Superman and Clark not having it. The dueling of the two before they become allies. Joker and Lex Luthor, absolutely classic. Everyone was in peak form here, and I actually forgot it was episodes because I had the movie format.
That's it. So, when I never saw it as episode. I know, like, eventually, like, I'd watch Superman after school, and then it was episodic that way. They aired all 3 when I first saw them in primetime as a movie.
There you go.
So
this was so good. And it just has so many iconic moments. Batman meeting Superman, Batman finding out who Clark Kent really was.
Superman using X-ray vision to find out that Batman's Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, you're peeking. This door is made of lead. I can't see through it. Well, there's always the direct approach. You're learning. And that set up Justice League. Like, let's just be frank.
Yes.
That's canonically how Justice League really started. So without that epic crossover, we wouldn't have this. Or how about Mercy versus Harley Quinn? Like,
oh yeah.
How's it going, Slugger? Swell, Mr. J. Thanks.
My favorite part is when the big shit blows up and Joker's on it and Batman rescues Harley Quinn. Put in. At this point, he probably is.
Yeah. Or how about when Harley Quinn gets arrested and she's like trying to plead her case to the camera, and then Mercy's like watching it like, oh, that's funny. Yeah, she's still hurting. But yeah, World's Finest is definitely up there. Grey Ghost for me was up there. Showdown with Jonah Hex.
Oh yes.
Why not? If they found an excuse to bring Jonah Hex into Batman TAS.
Yes.
You're dang right you're gonna do it. So
better than the movie.
Oof! Don't get me started. But not better than Legends of Tomorrow. They did Jonah Hex right there. Oh, mostly. Let's see. Gosh, there's just this wasn't technically a Batman episode, but the other crossover with Superman, where Superman has to play Batman for a while. That was a great one.
Oh, do you recognize somebody there? And Clark, as Bruce, is just staring at the picture, and then you have Tim. Bane. Oh yes. Bane.
Oh, and then he's like, "How did you mimic Bruce's voice?" And then he can adjust his vocal cords through his breathing, and then he does Robin, and then he goes, "Never do that again." Good stuff. There's so many. There was a Poison Ivy episode. Mad Love, that totally could be on here. Laughing Fish, Be a Clown. Bullet for Bullock. Like that one won an Emmy for music, which even though they were like, we won an Emmy for that somehow. Okay, like a random episode won an Emmy. That's how great this show was. There's so many. I mean, it take longer to pick out the bad episodes outside of Critters. All right, yes. Like canonically the worst episode. All right, it was so bad it got a commentary
because it was bad.
Because it was bad. All right. That's it for me. So go ahead with
All
yours.
right, mine. Shadow of the Bat parts 1 and 2. That one would have been like, if we were doing like a top 11, this would be like number 11. Like that's how close it was to making the list. The origin of Batgirl, uh, Gordon's partner being like a corrupt cop, just trying to get working with Rupert Thorne or with Two Face to take down Rupert Thorne, but trying to also you know just further his own career. And on that, Batgirl Returns. That was just because whenever I was a little kid, I would stay at my mom's friend's house. Like she'd babysit me, and she had a daughter. And I never wanted to be Batman. I wanted to be Robin. But she was Batgirl. So this is like a Batgirl and Robin episode. No Batman really, but just Batgirl and Robin. So I'm like, oh, it's like when I played with her. That's cool. Mad Love, Over the Edge, POV, the episode where you basically have Montoya, Bullock, and I can't remember the other cop's name. It wasn't Gordon. Like basically having to explain themselves to internal affairs about what they saw.
It was that rookie cop. I remember that.
Yeah. Because like something didn't go right, and it's really, if you like cop drama, that's like a good cop drama episode. The Strange Secret of Bruce Wayne.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a good one. He goes strange.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at the very the reason I like that one is he's trying to sell the identity of Batman to the highest bidder with all the villains, and Hugo Strange just basically says like, I'll just tell you it's Bruce Wayne. And Two-Face goes, Bruce Wayne? I know him. He's Batman. I'm the King of England.
I want to note the when he calls them all, and we get Joker's voicemail. Hello, this is the Joker. If you're calling me, boy, do you have the wrong number. Please leave your message after the scream. And then we hear like him torturing a guy. It's just like, what the heck?
That was great. Birds of a Feather. Probably the other good Penguin episode where he actually like wants to be a good person and like wants friendship with these elites, but they kind of make fun of him, and it makes him go crazy again. Legends of the Dark Knight. Just a cool.
Yeah, that was interesting.
That was
my favorite, but that was interesting.
Yeah,
Carrie Kelly.
Yeah, you get kind of a little 60s Batman. You get a little Dark Knight Returns, and then you even get like a little pot shot at Batman Forever and Batman Robin in there, and so it's kind of like, it's a good fan service episode. Not good enough for the top 10, but worthy of this. Let's see. I couldn't remember the actual episode name. I gotta find it now. It was the first 2 Raj Al Ghul episodes.
Oh, Demon's Head.
Demon's Head, yes. I put Head of the Demon question mark.
Demon's Head.
Demon's Head. Because it's pretty much a panel-for-panel telling of the original Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams story when they introduced him. Introduced Ra's al Ghul into the Batman mythos.
Yeah.
And Denny O'Neil's even credited as the writer on this episode. So just the comic book fan in me going like, watching as a kid and just being like, oh, that's cool. And then like reading those old books and being like, they essentially just, before taking a comic book and making a movie about it was the norm.
Yeah.
Like, this is what they did. And they made a 2-part episode just basically doing that.
Yeah. My only problem with the Ra's al Ghul episodes, notice how I said that. I said Ra's, you said Raz.
Depends on the can.
Canon! All right. My only problem with them was that even as a kid, I noticed that Talia and Batman got together, and I don't know why. Like, remember the first episode where she was there, she did the spy kind of thing where he's like trying to play you 2-3 moves ahead, and then all of a sudden in the next episode, he's like, and my daughter has fallen in love with you. I'm like, wait, why? Like,
yeah.
And then they kiss at the end, and he initiates the kiss at the end, and I'm like, why? Even as a kid, I mean, with him and Catwoman, that was one thing. You understood that relationship. Him and Talia, not so much. Yeah. So, anything else, or shall we go to number one?
Now we have Perchance to Dream.
Oh, yeah, that was an interesting one.
Kevin Conroy's favorite episode because it gives him a look of what it would be like if he wasn't Batman, his parents were still around, and give him Bruce Wayne getting the perfect life.
Yeah.
And I love how the end of it, where it's and I never really realized. I watched this as an adult, and then I went, huh, and then thought back to when I'd have dreams. Like, you're right, you don't really read in dreams. Like, everything's jumbled when you try to read something in a dream.
Now, see, that's something that I've always challenged because, and I'm not best with dreams. There are many times I don't remember them, but there are times I swear I've read in dreams.
Well, you can read certain, cause he opens the paper and he reads the first part, and then after that, it's just you couldn't, the whole, and then it just kind of dawned on me when I remember remember from dreams trying to read something. It's you see the first word, and it's just and I'm like, huh, that's cool, but. It's Kevin Conroy's favorite episode because he got to play Bruce Wayne, Batman, and Thomas Wayne all in one and interact with one another. So
that's my multiverse of madness.
Yes.
And
and last one is Appointment in Crime Alley, where it explains Bruce's relationship with Leslie.
Oh, that's I'm glad they went as far as they did with Leslie.
Yes.
They multiple episodes with her. So.
And the best part is when she's about to die, but then he sees, being held hostage about to die, and then he sees a trolley cart going off the rails, and he goes, perfect, just perfect, because he's like, I can't just prioritize Leslie, I got to save all these people too.
Yeah. Hard life being a bat pimp. No.
All right, so number one.
Okay, if this isn't your this isn't your number one, I'm gonna be shocked. It's Heart of Ice.
No, consider an honorable mention, but no, it's not.
Whoa, you don't even have Heart of Ice in your top 10? Holy crap!
You'll find out why.
Okay, I will. But this is the definitive Batman episode. This is the one that won the Emmy. This is the one that defined a character for decades. Because before this, Mr. Freeze was just an ice villain. Not a nice villain, an ice villain.
To see you.
Yes. Hey everyone, chill.
Look at the dinosaurs. The Ice Age.
Take 2. Call me in the morning. Get to the chopper, Batman. No, wrong movie. But no, this redefined him. Even just the opening of it. This is how I shall forever remember you. Forever young, forever beautiful. As true as they say, revenge is a dish best served cold. Michael Ansara was just absolutely brilliant as Mr. Freeze, and this was the episode that actually introduced us, technically, to Mark Hamill in this. Yeah, because remember, he was not supposed to be Joker. He was supposed to be just a random person.
He was just hey, you want me to do the Joker? I'll do the Joker for you.
They had Tim Curry, which he was it, and that made sense at the time. But then when they really started diving in, they were like, he doesn't really fit, and so they called back Mark Hamill, who had already done the voicing for this, jerk, CEO or head of Wayne Enterprises, and that's why you hear him twice, because that was not in order of how they filmed it all.
Right.
But anyways, Heart of Ice is just so beautiful because of the story, of the depth. We got the rather tragic origins of Victor and Nora Freeze. The lengths that Freeze would go to get his way. Even at the end when Batman wins with hot soup, ladies and gentlemen. He can win with everything. He's like, vengeance! No, justice. And you felt for him. The only episode you never felt for him was in the New Adventures episode where he was just like, screw it, I'm going to kill everybody. I don't care.
But he didn't want to kill them. He wanted to destroy their life's work and make them feel miserable.
Yeah, and that's the only time he didn't sympathize with it. But that was also after Sub-Zero, which was a great Batman movie.
Should have just no more Mr. Freeze after Sub-Zero.
Yeah, we could have used another Riddler episode, but we didn't get one. Anyway.
Yep.
But Heart of Ice was when most people think of Batman TAS, they go to Heart of Ice because that's the one where it's this was dramatic storytelling. This was season 1. I think it was episode 10, and this was everything to them. this was the one that showed them like this is what this show can be at its peak. And while other episodes definitely came close, like Two-Face, Over the Edge, and all of them, Heart of Ice is on that on that mountain peak in most people's minds. Clearly not your minds, but most people's minds.
Well, my number one, and you have great points, and I don't disagree with any of them. My number one is Critters. I mean, come on, it's got to be Critters, right? You have a giant wild boar chasing after Batman. I mean, it's like the perfect episode. No, it's not Critters.
You got a girl who's enhanced by steroids.
Yeah, it's just
that's not derogatory at all.
What's not to love? I mean, come on. No, my number one, and it's an obvious bias because I said I'm a Robin guy. Robin's Reckoning Part 1 and 2.
Ah, I can see why you say that. Yeah.
Yes. The origin of Robin, done extremely well with, they try to stop this, like, extortion and this, construction sabotage, and, Batman's trying to, interrogate the guy who's about to fall by going, like, oh, tell us who you work for, or we're just not going to save you. And then he says this name, and Robin has no clue who it is. But then it kind of triggers something in Batman, who knows that it's Tony Zuko, who killed Robin's parents, trying to extort the, Haley Circus. Then you see, like, the whole origin of Robin. It's so tragic, and they have, like, all the different... The way they, like, handle Robin's parents' death for a kid's show where, like, he cuts the rope and then, they do their act and then they just flash, like, the broken trapeze rope and everybody gasping, and that is horrifying. Especially on a kid's show. Like, it's horrifying as it is. This was on a children's show. And then Bruce takes Dick in, and they show him, like, in the middle of this giant room with the bed in the middle, and just to emphasize, to kind of make you feel about how alone Dick is in that situation. And then, part 2, again, not as good, but, again, for the Robin fan in me, of him, like, you see, like, the lessons that Bruce taught him as a kid and how he's working that in to, like, how he became a crime fighter. And then he just has his as Robin, he has, like, his total badass moment of just getting to beat the shit out of Tony Zuko, but then having, like, the realization moment where he's like, you don't know how I feel, Batman. And then he kind of realized, like, oh yeah, Batman does know how I feel. He's like, I take it personally. Like, no, I couldn't stand the thought that he would also take you. And, they didn't say, like, kill you, but then, like, you knew what it meant. Yeah, this was, if you're a Robin fan, this is the perfect episode, and, yep, it's my all-time favorite. And it also helped that I have the 2 parts of it on a VHS tape as a kid and watched it a lot.
Of course! Of course!
So, right. Yep, that is our top 10 episodes of Batman the Animated Series. We will be revisiting this idea with other wonderful 90s superhero cartoons later on, but this was as good a time as any to finally do this. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed, really hard for me to be a shill for everything given the circumstances, but if you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at athletic_geek89. And facebook.com/athleticgeek89. Todd, do you have social media?
Of course. Oh, you want me to tell it? Okay, fine.
Yes, please.
Yes, I'm on Twitter at Guardians_comic. You can find me on Facebook. Just look for my hair under Todd Black. And and I've got a Kickstarter going on right now for my book Tokyo Blade Detective. So if you are up for anime comics, you
probably up for about another couple weeks.
I got 2 more weeks at the time of this recording, so please check that out. And
Well, that is That's it for this episode. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you, Kevin Conroy.
Thank you, Kevin.